Well, John, first of all, I have to ask you, how are you? Because you've been missing for a few weeks for Villa, but you came back obviously now. An operation in your knee.
I had a operation. I've been fortunate in my career with my body to have no real major serious injuries that require surgery. So first time, it was expected to be 6 to 8 weeks. Managed to come back in 6 weeks. So feeling good, but it's about being careful and making sure I don't do too much too soon. So credit to the physios at Villa and the doctors there. Everything that I needed was perfect, and feeling good in good shape for what's to come. What
was going through your head when it initially happened? Was it, oh no?
I was scared. I remember right away feeling, oh, this isn't right. It was 10-15 minutes into the game. I've blocked a pass against Everton and I knew right away, so my hand goes up. And obviously I've experienced players that have done serious knee injuries 6 months plus feeling able to walk off. So my worry was there. I was petrified really. But then you get the scan and you wait, and thankfully it was good news that it was only a sort of minor knee injury. But still one you need to look after. The knee obviously reacts in different ways to surgery, but it could have been a lot worse. And even after it, there was a possibility of not doing surgery, but then after a few days it was clear it needed done. So I got it done, and from there I was pretty positive and managed to get through it well.
Was that the experience for yourself, John, saying to yourself, you know, I know that this is serious and I need to do something about it, otherwise, because the John McGinn of old may said, I'll just play on.
But I did think about it. I took a few days to consider it. I thought it was an important time for the club, an important time of the season, big games. But then as the days went on, it started to swell more, and there was more fluid in the knee. So as much as like to think I could have braved on, it was clear quite soon that I needed the surgery. But as you get older, of course you need to look after your body. I'm 31 now, so to do anything crazy would be wild.
Mm-hmm. We'll speak about Scotland in a second, but this season for Villa has gone just incredibly well. You're sitting fourth in the Premier League at the moment, in a Champions League spot. You're being hunted down by Liverpool and Chelsea. You've got Bologna next week in the Europa League. This could be just an incredible season for that football club, couldn't it?
Huge. We had our targets at the start of the season. We missed out last year on goal difference for the Champions League. We had a bit of a dodgy decision at Old Trafford, but we were so close, so it hurt. So we were using the hut from last season to drive us on. We had some special nights in the Champions League last year, and we want to get back there. But what we're competing against is massive institutions, powerful clubs who can spend whatever they like. We're obviously a massive club in our own right, but for us to continuously compete at that level is a huge credit to all of us involved, not only the players, the staff, but everyone involved in the club. Can we continuously compete with the big six? That's what we're trying to do in this season. We know how important it is to try and do that.
You're trying to punch above your weight. Similarly with Scotland, that's what they're trying to do. You've already achieved that with the qualifications for the World Cup. How much do you take from the bond in that Villa dressing room into the Scotland dressing room and try and replicate what's going on?
I take a lot of pride in the fact that Villa had been away from this position in a long time. Scotland had obviously been away from the position in a long time, and you get used to the experiences, both good and bad. What comes with both is high expectation. So you set a standard, and once you set that standard, it's expected to stay. I've seen the same at Villa now. If we drop anything less than what we're used to, you'll get criticised, but that's just part of it. That's part of being successful, and what we've got now, both at Villa and here, is a lot of experienced players, and I'm quite enjoying. There's a lot of guys in that Villa changing room I've spent a lot of years with, and we've been on a brilliant journey together. And the same here, we've got a lot of guys who have been there together, so it helps, it makes it easier, and hopefully we can keep climbing.
It was 10 years ago yesterday you played your first game for Scotland against Denmark, a 1-0 win against Denmark, interestingly enough. In the dressing room that day, I don't know if you can remember, Craig Gordon was in goal, Kieran Tierney played, Grant Hanley was
Maloney,
there,
I think.
Sean Maloney,
Matt
Scott
Richard.
Bain was actually on the bench that day. But again, you've seen Scotland evolve through that time. Just how different is it now from 10 years ago?
Well, 10 years ago was a friendly in March against a team that had qualified and we had nothing. I don't even think we had a playoff at that time. It does feel a long time ago. I would say it felt like yesterday, but it doesn't. But the way we've evolved as a group of players, as a nation, has been huge. This is 2 major tournaments since. This is going to be the third. How we've come, how far we've come, is incredible. I mean, there's still so much we've got to improve. We know that, but we're a small country fighting against, like you said, bigger nations. We don't have the same luxuries that they do, but what we do have is grit and determination. And was it our best campaign? No, probably not in terms of performances, but what we did was we had one objective, and that was to finish first in the group and create some history, and we managed to do that.
Players like yourself playing in what is deemed to be the top league in the world, in world football, and Andy Robertson's playing there, there's other Scots down there. You've got the likes of Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmer playing in Serie A now as well. The standard of player has risen. To actually get into the team now, you've got to be at a decent level, have you not?
Aye, and that's the aim for the younger players, to try and not only compete with us, try and take our jerseys off us, really, and then from there build a career of their own. But I think we've got not only myself, Robbo, McTominay, Christie, there's a couple of them waving at me now. We've got players playing at a high level in important matches, but and what we've been lucky throughout the years, we've had a lot of captains of clubs, and that carries on. Same now, Fergie, Kenny, myself. Obviously Robbo's vice captain of Liverpool. Coops was the captain of Leeds when we were granted. We've had a lot of experience in leadership throughout the group, so at times have we probably lacked the sort of special performances that of before, but what we have is leadership, character, belief, and you can't buy that in the shops. That's worked towards, that's stuff you've learned over the years, and it's a credit to everyone in there, that we all lead in our own certain ways. And what we want to do now is we don't want to sit still and go, oh, we've made it to the World Cup. We've not done ourselves justice in the last couple of tournaments, so we're fortunate enough that we've got a chance to amend it. This is your third major tournament, John. Can you ever envisage 10 years ago that you'd be sitting 10 years later on looking forward to a World Cup, having been to 2 Euros? Because Scotland, we just didn't qualify for these events back then. No, never did I envisage even playing for Scotland. So 10 years ago, I'll never forget Gordon Strachan reading my name off that sheet of paper. The feeling, the butterflies, the nerves that ran through my body that day were mental. And 10 years down the line to be preparing for a World Cup after 2 major tournaments, it's surreal to even think about it. But once you're in the bubble, once you're going through it, when you've got so much to look forward to with club and country, you don't really take a step back and look and see what we've achieved. But the good thing for us, when you're in that bubble, we're so determined to go and try and achieve more. We haven't done ourselves justice in the major tournaments, but the journeys to get there can't be forgotten, and that's something that we hold very strongly in the dressing room. Are you finding family and friends are coming out the woodwork now, all looking for tickets for Haiti, for Morocco and for Brazil in a few weeks' time? No, they've actually been pretty good, to be fair. I think with the cost of travelling, how far away it is, the amount of time people would need to take off work, it's actually a little bit easier than Germany. And obviously I've made it clear to them that if I'm not in the squad, I'm not going to get the tickets, so we'll need to see when the squad's out, and I'll see if we can sweep up as many spares as I always manage to get. Just how proud are you of your brothers? Because a lot of the McGinn stuff has been about yourself recently, but when you see what Paul's done at Motherwell this year, and you see Stephen going into Falkirk, and the season they've had has just been incredible, because everything has been focused on John McGinn. But they're actually doing okay as well, aren't they? Aye, well, in terms of seasons in football, this has probably been right up there in terms of, for the three of us, normally we're in the group chat, mum and dad, my sister are in there, somebody's been beat, or somebody's been trounced, or someone's gone through a bad spell. This year's been pretty positive in the whole. Falkirk seem to be winning, Motherwell seem to be winning, and so do Villa. So there's been loads of weekends this year where the three of us have won. But Stephen's been really good for John McGinn. I think John McGinn's been obviously brilliant for Stephen. I think they're very different, but they both love football. They see football in the same way, and I think obviously Stephen's got his eye on at one point being a manager of his own, and I think for him it's so fortunate to learn off a great manager in John McGinn. I think all the lads that have worked to him speak so highly of him, so hopefully they can kick on and maybe win the cup this year. And then obviously Paul's had one of the best seasons of his career. He's had a new manager come in and allow him to flourish. He's always had that ability, but it's just about having a manager to give him that responsibility and belief. And at 35, he's shown no signs of slowing down, and he's more than capable of going up another gear or two.
In terms of Scotland, Saturday is behind us here. Wasn't great. The fans vented their frustration after the game. Could you understand that?
Partly. I think that the balance has to be there. People pay a lot of money to come and watch us. It's not easy to do that. We understand that, but there obviously has to be a balance between do you go gung-ho and try and pick off a team who are, I think they're 16th or 17th in the world, very talented team. But what we tried to do at the weekend, we gave people an opportunity to show that they can compete in the starting 11. We tried a couple of new things, which is what these fixtures are for. Will we perfect in terms of performance or creating chances? Probably not. But I look back to friendlies we've had before in front of 26,000, really poor results, performances, like a Belgium friendly at Hampden. That's a low point. So it's about getting the balance right. It's about remembering where we are, but also as players realising that doesn't mean we're immune to criticism or immune to being booed. We need to, every time we represent Scotland, go and try and put on a show. But we need to also realise that if we go gung-ho against a team like Japan, you can get beat 4 or 5. So I understand in a way, but it's obviously no nice at home.
So how different do you think it will be tomorrow down in Liverpool?
It'll be strange, but Tartan Army are everywhere. They always follow us, no matter if it's Peru, Mexico, Liverpool. But what tomorrow is a completely different test against an African team. So like when you touch on the boo and indulging on it too much, it's important for us to play against nations that we don't normally play. Japan isn't a nation that we'll come up against in a European competition. Ivory Coast help us prepare for Morocco. So we have the luxury for the first time in a long time to prepare for these games without the pressure of the playoffs. So like I said, there's obviously got to be a little bit of patience maybe for us to try new things, because sometimes you can't win. People want you to try new players, try new things, but when that doesn't go to plan, the criticism comes. So I think tomorrow we'll see maybe something similar in terms of different personnel, people stating a claim to try and get in the squad, and it'll be exciting for us to play with a few Scottish fans in Liverpool and see how we got on against African opposition.
Sure, it'll be great. We've got some quick fire ones before you go.
No worries.
Memories of '98 in the World Cup?
Zero. No memories. I remember my granddad being the president at the time, and he brought back a few gifts, but can't remember any of the games.
When the World Cup is mentioned, what springs to mind immediately?
Zidane headbutt.
Really?
I'm not sure that was a World Cup, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah. And France, yeah.
Aye, that's what springs to mind.
Right, okay. World Cup, winning goal or clearing off the line in the final minute to win the match?
Clearing off the line in the final minute. I think that would be better.
Which Scotland player would you trust most in a penalty shootout?
Oh, Kenny McLean. I think he's the man.
He's getting mentioned next as well. McLean, Tierney or McTominay? Which one would you like to have scored?
Well, McTominay's would have got me on the wall up there. Tierney's would have got us to the World Cup, and Kenny secured it. So it's hard to compete. But I would say KT's, just for the magnitude of it.
Who would make the best basketball or American football player in the squad?
American football player Grant Hanley, because he's a monster. Basketball, Big McTominay.
One thing about you that we don't know.
One thing about me I don't know. I don't like carrots.
Good one, good answer. If you could speak to one person before you walked out the tunnel, who would it be and what would you say? In the World Cup?
In the World Cup, my mum. Because she would say, what she'd say, just enjoy it.
Denmark game memories?
The best night representing Scotland I could even imagine. Just adrenaline.
And finally, waving the corner flag after that game. What was going through your head?
I don't know what was going through my head. I'm just glad I didn't poke someone's eye out.
Brilliant, John.
Cheers.
Superb.
No worries.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the shorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know?
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
A ball map. Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.
Scotland play tonight and it's only 3 more games to the World Cup. Can Steve Clarke's men get one over on the Elephants? And there's another managerial vacancy in Scottish football. I'm Ray Bradshaw and we've got all of our game covered right here. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Tuesday the 31st of March. And Scotland are back in action again tonight.
I think it's been very, very beneficial when you look at some of the friendly matches that we've taken on in terms of qualifying and knowing the level you've got to get to and how to get over the line in those qualifying games.
Steve Clarke's side take to the pitch in Liverpool this evening as they face Ivory Coast, and the fans will be looking for the team to bounce back from defeat against Japan.
Here comes Japan once more, it's into Shoga, it must be, it surely is, it is! The goal beyond gun. Well, we thought it's been on the cards, and it's Junior Ito. It is Scotland 0, Japan 1.
Can Scotland get the World Cup build-up back on track? And the domestic game hasn't stopped as Ayr United part ways with their boss.
Now, manager Scott Brown has left Ayr United this morning by mutual consent. That after a run of 9 games without a win. The former Celtic and Scotland captain had been in charge of the Honest Men since January last year.
From the Championship to the World Cup, we've got all of Scottish football right here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. The final day of the tax year, and that's what you want to start your day with, is a lovely football podcast talking about Scotland getting booed against Japan. We've got 2 brilliant guests, actually maybe a surprise guest later on. Our first guest, Joelle Murray, 48 caps for Scotland, the current Hibs women's manager. Joelle, how are you?
I'm good, Ray. How are you?
I'm okay. Do you remember a time you get booed off the pitch? Did it ever happen?
Thankfully not. There probably has been, and I've maybe just not heard them. But can't think of a time where I did.
Yeah, that's what I say about all my gigs as well. That's fair. We're also joined by Craig Telfer, View from the Terrace presenter. Craig, you're back on the telly just now. You enjoy being back on?
Oh, it's fantastic, Ray. Yeah, it's a really good time to be getting to document Scottish football from the fans' perspective. I think across the SPFL and beyond, there is so much action happening, and it's a privilege to get the chance to share the experience with my friends and the wider Scottish public as well. So very privileged.
Genuine question, because I've known you a while. I've done a couple of episodes of it. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to choose your tops and clothes now? Because I know you take pride in that. How hard is it?
Very straightforward, Ray. I'm a man with a discerning eye, and my discerning eyes cast far and wide across the fashion landscape. So it's you just think with your heart and just imagine how you would look with how it fits into your wardrobe. You should try it sometime. I'd recommend.
Yeah, well, you're saying that to me. I have literally met Joelle about 50 times. I've only ever seen her in a Hibs trackie. So let's not throw stones when we're around about here. Let's kick off with tonight down at the Hill Dickinson Stadium in Everton, Scotland, against the Ivory Coast. It's our away game. I'm heading down after we finish this podcast. Steve Clarke has said 6 or 7 changes for this match. Pretty bold for Steve Clarke. I don't think I've ever heard him say that kind of thing. Joelle, do you think this was always a plan, or is it after Saturday?
I don't think Steve Clarke's a manager that makes decisions based on reactions. I think this was probably always the plan. 2 games that will give him an opportunity, of course. This one tonight in particular to rotate, and I think his words were a raft of changes from the 1-0 defeat to Japan. So it will be interesting to see that starting lineup. But like I said, these are the purpose for me of these games leading into the summer.
Yes, I've actually sat. We did the podcast yesterday with Michael Grant on, with Cammy Bell, and we were going through and we're trying to work out if he says 6 or 7. What it would be, because you do imagine you'll see the likes of McTominay and McGinn probably start, but you never know with both of them not long back from injury. Craig, do you think we'll see Angus Gunn goal? Do you think we'll see a change at right back? What are you thinking?
I think you're right there. I think we might see a change in right back. I think Anthony Ralston might start this game ahead of Nathan Patterson. I think we might see changes in central defence. It's something that Clark's done in the past, where it's very much horses for courses depending on the opponent. We can sometimes use different centre backs. I think guys like Billy Gilmour might start this game. We might get to see Lennon Miller have a start. Shea Adams might play up front. I think it's a useful exercise to see exactly what our fringe players can offer. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I think Scotland have got about 5 or 6 nailed on guys who have been our avatars, guys that we have carried the team forward over the last 5 years, and it's basically getting those guys into the team, making sure they're fit and prepared, and then building a team around the rest of them. So it's a good opportunity to try things differently. We tried stuff against Japan. I think we're going longer a bit more to hit Lyndon Dykes. So I think it's a big training exercise really in front of a crowd. So like Joelle says, I'm interested to see how we line up, what these fringe players can do, and fundamentally if we can get a win and try and build on that good feeling after the Denmark game in November.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that we didn't see any of Che Adam on Saturday when the other 3 strikers in the squad played. Joelle, for you, who would you like to see tonight? I mean, Craig mentioned we might see Tony Ralston. Do you think there's a chance for Ross McCrory in there? Do you think you'll see... I mean, you've probably got better insight than anyone. Do you know if Grant Hanley is fit? Have you seen him in the training ground? What's happening?
Yeah, Grant's been kind of back on the grass. I think he was in the matchday squad for the Motherwell game, but I think nature of that position is difficult when you're back from an injury and you're on restricted minutes. It's difficult to build minutes at centre back, and if we're talking about that game in particular, it was 0-0. So he's fit, and I think we'll probably see him tonight. Might not be for the 90, but I'd like to see him. And I think for me, you go to the World Cup. And you need to see these players. You need to see these players before it. You never know what can happen in the lead up to it. Injuries, illnesses, lack a form. Like Craig said, you've probably got a core, but then out with that core, who's competing for those places. And I think as a player, if I'm flipping from kind of coach to player, as a player, that's all you can ask for. You probably go into this camp as a player thinking, I'm probably going to get an opportunity at some point. Might not be a start or a full 90, but it'll be an opportunity. And as a player, if and when that opportunity comes, regardless of if you're that core group or that fringe group, you need to try and take it as best as possible, because, like I said, so many things can happen between now and the summer from a player availability perspective. But yeah, I think seeing those changes tonight, I think ideally we see, in my opinion, Grant Hanley out there. He's been excellent for Hibs all season up until his injury, so I think he'll be desperate to take to the grass tonight and really show what he can do, albeit on the back of a fairly long injury.
Yeah, can you answer this? I don't know if this happens. This is something that I believe would happen when you have the likes of, there's a lot of Scottish players coming back from injury. Do managers, I mean, yourself now as Hibs manager, I saw you've had Kathleen McGovern, Ailey Adams called back to Scotland squad. Do you have a conversation with the Scotland manager if someone's coming back from injury, or when you were a player? Is that a thing where they go, right, they can come join the squad, but maybe limit their minutes, maybe do this? Does that happen a lot?
Yeah, so in my kind of short period within the new role, I've had a lot of conversations with Mel Andriata around McGov in particular. And it's not just on the back of niggles or injuries or prior to camp. So I think it's important having that open line of communication when your players going away to camp and having that trust and honesty, so that you're giving your player to an environment that they're going to be protected, and they're hopefully going to come back in the best possible bill of health. So yeah, in my opinion, and from my perspective, I've had a number of conversations from Mel, which I think is really, really helpful when you're sending your players away on international duty.
That's fascinating, because Craig, you've spent a lot of time around Steve Clarke. You've interviewed him a few times. Can you imagine him texting managers and chatting and being in a WhatsApp group? He doesn't strike like that kind of guy, does he?
I've actually, to be honest with you, I've never actually had the opportunity to meet Steve Clarke, but from how he comes across in the public, yes, I think it's very much. I could just imagine him. I imagine him being quite cordial and quite friendly and quite funny away from the cameras. I think he's created this persona for himself in front of the cameras that's kind of quite uncompromising, maybe a bit dour, maybe it comes across a bit stubborn. But away from that, I'm sure it's that you've got to have constant dialogue with managers, keep them on side, making sure that you have a good relationship, so that when it does come to difficult discussions about, as we talked about, managing player minutes, making sure guys can join up with the camp at the right times, just to make sure that you can have those conversations if things do get a bit awkward with him. So I've no doubt he's got an excellent relationship with all the managers from our players.
The first time I met him, we were doing a photo opportunity and he wanted to look taller than me, so he stood 2 steps above me. So that is the Steve Clarke. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what they call me, John Hartson. So what a guy.
Have you ever seen the photograph of Gordon Strachan welcoming Artur Boruc to Celtic, and he's standing on a small wall just at the side of him, just to try and give himself an extra foot, and he still isn't tall enough to meet Artur Boruc. Worth looking up once we finish up here.
I like that. That's good. Always give your listeners some homework. That's always what you want. And I think when we look at, we'll kind of round up on Scotland just now, just quickly from Craig and Joelle here. So who would you like to see get a good run out tonight? Are we talking players like you've mentioned already, Craig, Lennon Miller, maybe a more Finlay Curtis, Andy Irving, Ross McCrory players who are kind of periphery squad, even someone like Scott Bain. Joelle, who would you like to see tonight get an extended run out after Tommy Conway got one on Saturday?
Yeah, I think 2 players that you've mentioned there, Ray, Lennon Miller, Finlay Curtis, certainly for me, players that are in form, coming into form, and hopefully can take that kind of club form into the international setup. So yeah, two young players there for me, Ray.
Craig?
I wouldn't mind seeing Dominic Hyam get a shot. I'll be honest and say he's a player that I don't know too much about, but by all accounts he's doing very well at Wrexham. They're having a very successful season in the Championship. I think he's the captain there as well. So this is the perfect opportunity to try him out. Let's see what it is. It's a friendly game, so you do have the licence to have a laugh, maybe do things in competitive matches you wouldn't necessarily do. So let's see how good he is. Let's see how good Andy Irving is. I think the fact that he is playing like in Czechia at the moment, I think that gives him a sort of like a wild card factor as well. So I'm keen to see what they can do. But I think friendlies are difficult games to get excited about and difficult to get upset about. I don't understand why there was some booing after the game against Japan, because ultimately it's just a bit of a kickabout and you do have the chance to try stuff out. So it's not that deep. Don't get too hung up on it.
Yeah, I was just checking there. Dominic Hyams had 1 Scotland appearance, and it was after the 2 very late goals against Norway. He came on at 2-1 after Kenny McLean and Lyndon Dykes had scored. So he's played for us for about 2 minutes. So yeah, that's an incredible shout. Right, well, let's talk about Ivory Coast, our opponents tonight, and a warm welcome to African football writer Ali Howorth. So, Ali, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
That's all right. We didn't ask you, so it's good. I'm looking forward to it. Ali, from yourself, first of all, African football writer feels a very vague title to introduce. So where do you cover? Do you cover the whole continent, or is there a specific region? What's your background?
I mean, yeah, this is the joys of there being such limited coverage, particularly from an international perspective, is I get slapped with the entire continent. I mean, I'm from Kenya. My family's originally from Scotland, and I live in Scotland, but I'm from Kenya, so I do a lot more East African stuff. But yeah, you end up just kind of being the whole continent with that title. So that's me.
Nice. The minute you said East African, all I could think about was David Obua. That is the way my mind works. I love it. Right, so let's chat Ivory Coast then. Steve Clarke came out with comments saying he wanted to play an African team because we're playing Morocco in the World Cup. Are there similarities between this Ivory Coast team and Morocco, or is it just they live in the same continent?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I forgot to check the actual distances, but I wouldn't be surprised if Casablanca was closer to Edinburgh than it was to Abidjan. They have very, very little in common, in so many ways, but especially in a footballing way. I mean, Côte d'Ivoire are in a bit of an interesting time, I guess. They won the AFCON in 2024, so just 2 years ago, but that was in the most ridiculous kind of fashion possible. I mean, I don't know if you guys even remember it, but they were so bad in the group stage, they sacked their manager midway through the tournament, thought they were going to get knocked out, squeezed through as the worst of the best third place teams, despite losing to Equatorial Guinea 4-0. Bring in now head coach Emers Faye, who's never had a head coaching job before, and they go on this kind of miracle run and win the whole thing, and it's kind of remarkable. But that, even though it was only 2 years ago, that most of that team has actually been moved on. Even at the next AFCON earlier this year, they only had, I think, 14 of the 26 players who were at the previous one. So this is a very, very new team, very young and very exciting. The amount of attacking talent they have, particularly in wide areas, is in many ways frightening. I mean, a lot of people know Amad Diallo playing at Man United. He'll probably start against Scotland. He was rested against South Korea, but then kind of some of the other players they brought in, Martial Godot has been one of the kind of most exciting young wingers at Strasbourg in Ligue 1 this season. Yann Diomande, who for my money is probably the best player for Côte d'Ivoire, is injured, so he's not playing. But the good side of that from a Scotland perspective is that they, unlike Scotland, don't really know who their strongest starting 11 is. There's a lot of rotation to be done. I reckon we could see 10 or 11 changes from the team that beat South Korea 4-0 on Saturday. And it is a team that's kind of finding its own identity and is in quite a bit of transition.
Okay, that's interesting because I had a look at the squad. Like you said, they beat South Korea 4-0, and I knew not that many, Guessand and Pepe and Kessie, the kind of older players, and obviously Diallo. Does it give us some ground for optimism then, the fact they don't know their best starting 11? What are their weaknesses, would you say, this Ivory Coast side, Ali?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does from a Scottish perspective. Look, I think when you put the players man for man up against Scotland, I think Côte d'Ivoire's team is so much stronger. And they just the individual talent they have. I went on to Transfer Market, the kind of transfer website, and looked at the international windows. So again, bear in mind, Yann Diomande, the most expensive player, wasn't there. Scotland's whole squad was valued at about 198 million. Côte d'Ivoire's was valued at about 425 million. So that, every single position, they have a lot of depth, they have a lot of talent. But again, in the transfers, it kind of represents their potential. It's a very young team. So I think there's a lot to be had from that with Scotland. And even in the game against South Korea, they scored 4 goals, they won 4-0, but they gave up quite a lot of chances. And they were the same at this last AFCON. They were really entertaining, but they do give you chances. So I think from a Scottish perspective, Côte d'Ivoire want to play in the transition. They want to play, they've kind of, in many ways, a kind of traditional West African side, really strong technical midfielders, but really it's their wingers that bring kind of the joy. It's, these pacey wingers. Simon Adingra scored against South Korea. So from a Scotland perspective, if you're happy to take that kind of transition game out of it from Côte d'Ivoire, Scotland are happy to play a bit deeper, happy to kind of, suffer a bit more in a lower block. I think you can get a lot of joy going at Côte d'Ivoire because I think they don't have a settled back line. They don't have a settled kind of defensive midfield structure yet. So I think from the Scotland perspective, yes, I think you look at Côte d'Ivoire and say, look, they have a lot of talent. But I think from Steve Clarke's perspective, it's a great team to play because you're playing a team that have a lot of talent. But I think it's also there for Scotland to get a result.
Yeah, the minute you said pacey wingers, I just started panicking because I don't want to see some young pacey winger running at Anthony Ralston for 90 minutes. That's not what you want. Ali, before we let you go, give us a prediction for tonight's game then. You're down in Liverpool. You're going to be at the game. Tell me what you think.
Well, I'm hoping that'll be better than the Japan game because I was also there at Hampden and that was grim. I'm going to go for a kind of exciting 2-2 draw.
I'd love that. Also, it strikes me as you're the first person I've ever met in my life who's going to this game today that you're who the half and half scarf is for in this game. That is I
brought my Scotland kit and my Ivorian kit and I'll sew them together.
Did you actually?
No, I've got the two, but I haven't got around to sewing them together yet.
I guarantee I'm going to see you in the streets of Liverpool later. Half and half shirt, half and half shorts. It's nice. You've woven that yourself. Ali, thanks for joining us. Where can people find you if they want to check out other African football stuff?
On social media, my name's Alistair Howorth on social media, or Ali Howorth. I also have a Substack and YouTube called On the Whistle, and the On the Whistle podcast and the Substack, both about African football and some fairly interesting stuff always happening in African football. So it's worth a follow.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Ali. You can see Ivory Coast v Scotland live on BBC Two Scotland from 7:15 or listen to Sports Sound on Radio Scotland from 6 o'clock. Kick-off tonight is at 7:30, which I didn't even actually know, and I'm going to the game. Okay, let's turn our attention to domestic matters. Scott Brown has parted company with Ayr United. Feels like this one's been coming for a little while, Craig, hasn't it? They're no longer known as Scott Brown's Ayr United, which seemed to be a moniker that was given to him for a long time. It didn't really work out for him, did it?
No, it feels like a surprise, but it's not a surprise at the same time. Go back to Tuesday last week, Ray, and there was a meeting between the Ayr United Supporters Association and the board, and Graham Mathey, the sort of sporting director, and David Smith, the chairman, had basically said, acknowledged mistakes had been made over the course of the season in terms of recruitment, in terms of how the season had panned out. They were very much, Scott Brown was the person they were going to be sticking with for the foreseeable future. And I don't know what's happened over the past 7 days, but obviously the defeat to Wraith Rovers, were beaten 3-0 on Friday night at Starks Park, quite convincingly so as well. And I know that there were injuries that made to play. I think it was like Lucas McRoberts, young striker, they had to play up front in the absence of Anton Downs and George Oakley. So that didn't necessarily help matters. But it feels like, yes, he's our man. To a couple of days later, he's walking away. I think in Brown's post-match interviews, he did sound quite defeated a lot of the time in certainly recent weeks. Like he had run out of ideas as to how to turn the ship around. And I suppose for Ayr United at the moment, it's just, I think they're going to be safe. I think they've got enough points on the board to avoid getting dragged into the likes of what Ross County and Ayr Dronians are going through. Maybe a win might just be enough to do it, but it really feels like it's been a wasted season. This was a season where they needed investment so they could be challenging for the title alongside Partick Thistle, alongside St Johnstone, and they've pretty much since the first couple of weeks have fallen well short of that. Feels a bit of a wasted season, and Brown's had to carry the can for that. So very interested to see what Ayr United do next, and probably even more interesting to see what Scott Brown does next.
Yeah, they'd recruited really heavily, like you say. I remember seeing Thistle beat them in the League Cup probably end of August, and the likes of Stuart Bannigan, Curtis Main, Dom Thomas, people with lots of experience in Scotland, the playoffs seem to be the minimum, and he's not got that. It's funny Craig said that, Joelle, about what Scott Brown will happen to him next. Do you think he'll be keen to get back on that managerial merry-go-round? I mean, I think he was at Fleetwood before Ayr United, so he's already had 2 cracks at the job. Do you think you'll see him get another one?
Yeah, I think so. I think his profile will certainly align him to certain jobs. I think, like you said, prior to the Ayr job, he was at Fleetwood. A really poor finish in that kind of debut season meant he was relieved of his duties there. And let's be honest, he done a remarkable job. The kind of first mini season, I think he came in January. Firstly, saved him from relegation. Ayr had a fantastic first full season. So I don't think we can overlook that. But of course, what supporters look to is the current form, results, performances, and for a club like Ayr, certainly not been good enough. But I do believe Scott Brown will attract interest from other clubs. If not already, probably soon. And he will have a keen appetite. I think he he's kind of jumped into the coaching side of the game with the same appetite, hunger and desire as he played the game. So yeah, I've no doubt that he will be a manager that will have a bit of demand around him at the moment.
Yeah, Craig spoke about this podcast before about his penchant for using about, I think, what was the exact number, 65 different goalies in his time. For you, Joelle, as a goalkeeper, as a manager now, I mean, you're 3-4 months into the role now. Is a goalkeeper something you think you need to stick with the whole time? Because I think Scott Brown, I think it was 8 different goalies I think we got to, Craig. Was it something like that? Joelle, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a preference and that's what Scott wanted to do. But for me, that's the one position that I think you absolutely cannot rotate. I think you need that consistency, that continuity in that position. You talk about goalkeepers being kind of a completely different entity to outfielders, and for me, like I said, it's something that or a position that I would probably only rotate injury, illness, or dramatic loss in form, and I think the rotation in that position is it's been quite eye opening. If it is indeed the numbers that you're quoting there, so a strange one, but personal preference, I guess.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. Craig, for you, do you think we'll see Scott Brown reinvent himself with a different hairstyle? Remember, he was bald as a player, now are we seeing cornrows in his next role? What are you thinking?
I think Scott Brown is probably, for between now and the rest of his life, he can go into punditry. You know, he had a very successful, very high-profile career in Scotland, so he can pretty much go on the television, go on radio, go on podcast. I think people will be very interested in what he's got to say. I think the coaching's a bit different. You know, that I think that it's strange. Just I remember going to see, there was a match between Stennismere and Ayr United in the League Cup in the summer of 2024. Ayr United beat Stennismere 4-1, and I remember watching it and could not believe how good they were. They were playing with inverted fullbacks, something you just don't see at the sort of level I'm at. And I thought they looked so well coached, so aggressive, so intense, just better and stronger across the park than my own team. And just that effervescence is just something has from the end of the season there, when they were knocked out of the playoffs by Thistle, to now, just a lot of that effervescence is gone and the football's quite staid and quite stodgy. And I think that if Scott Brown does want to get into management again, and I've no doubt he does, if you've got I think a lot of time if you've had a setback, you want to get the chance to get straight back out there and show, no, I'm a good manager, I do have something to offer, I can be a success. I think he perhaps needs a period of introspection, and just in terms of like the goalkeeping situation, we kind of joked about it there, but that is quite bad when you burn through 8 goalkeepers across 2 seasons. Maybe look at the kind of tactics, or the one-dimensional, go and try to hit George Oakley and Anton Dowds far too often. And just if he's able to watch games back and maybe look at what he did, he could have done differently, I think he can maybe kick on and be a success elsewhere. But as Joelle said, with a name in his profile, that'll always open doors for you. And football, punditry, coaching, management, I think there'll always still be someone willing to give him a chance on that front.
Yeah, he's been really good when I've seen him. I think he's done a couple of Scotland games. Craig, for you, any obvious candidates for the new Ayr manager? Because let's be honest, it's going to be a time where your manager is getting linked with jobs.
Yeah, I think it's obviously I don't want that to happen. I think Gary Naismith would be an ideal candidate for them. You know, he's done very well at Stennismere. He's got the team at this stage challenging with Inverness Caledonian Thistle to win the League One title, a remarkable achievement. So personally, I hope that I don't think that's the case, but I do think he would be a good fit for Ayr United. I think Ayr at the moment are doing so much good stuff off the pitch. You know, they've redeveloped the new stand. They have built a new training complex. So the club off the scenes, or behind the scenes certainly, are going in a really positive direction. They just need the right person in front of it to match that. And I don't know some of the names as well. Tony Docherty, Rhys McCabe, Kevin Thompson, maybe a return for Ian McCall. Who knows? But it's very interesting. I think that the club feel like in a good place. I feel like it'd be quite an attractive destination for a lot of managers, to be honest.
Yeah. Joelle, you chucking your name in the ring?
No.
Well, let's wrap up with talking about yourself, Joelle, because your Hibs side face league leaders Glasgow City tomorrow night, fresh from them winning the League Cup on Sunday. Lovely goals in that one. As I was walking into the gym, they're showing the Lisa Forrest one again, the swerve on, it's lovely. SWPL's heading for another exciting title finish in it. But I don't know if you spoke about the podcast. Beating Hearts last minute. How was that?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Obviously, derbies are derbies, and those are the ones that, whatever role you are associated to the club, player, non-football staff member, football staff member, coach, those are the ones you look to, and those are the games that you want to win. So to get that win, it was an unbelievable feeling, and I think the players deserved it on the back of a very tough and challenging 3-game week, an unbeaten 3-game week. I think they certainly deserved it. At one point in the game, we obviously picked up a couple of injuries midweek. We had Ailey Adams call off before the game unwell, and McGuff went down in 11 minutes. I turned to one of the staff members on the bench and said, any chance we're going to get a break here? Because it just felt like something after something. And then, 80 minutes later, Rosie Livingston pops up, and she's done that once before, but pops up with another late derby winning goal. So absolutely delighted for the players.
It's I think the SWPL, the way the league finishes every season, it's so exciting. And I love the fact you're already drilled into the manager when you said a busy 3-game week, and then you took a slight pause and said unbeaten. You're already into it. Big fan of that. That's all we get time for. Many thanks to Joelle, Craig and Ali, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Thanks for listening today. I was slightly confident about Scotland Ivory Coast, and then I heard they've got really, really good wingers, and now I'm not so confident, but that's the way football works. Tune in again tomorrow for all the debrief after the game. Thanks for listening.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know?
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.